Welcome to Emerging Ease, where we will focus on unraveling the difficulties in the midst of our journey and move toward forward progress. This program is not meant to replace any form of therapy, and you are encouraged to seek out a mental health professional if necessary. Hello. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Emerging Ease with me, your host, Keisha, here on the Batchelor News Network. Thank you for tuning in, as you always do. Today, we're going to talk about mental health, but really with a focus on men's mental health. So let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, before I do jump in, I want to remind you, if you are interested in advertising, please feel free to email me at emergingease@gmail.com, and feel free to join the group on Emerging Ease on Facebook. All right, so today we're going to really focus on mental health of men. The statistics, as you know, have been truly difficult to process for any and everyone since the onset of COVID and mental health difficulties, okay? So the thing is, in mental health, more women than men, usually, regardless of race, are willing to seek out mental health services, because there's often the stigma that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go talk to this stranger about, what's going on with me. How are they going to see me? What things would I really talk to them about? What really means that as a man, I need to seek out mental health services. So with that being said, I want to touch on a few of those because it's very important for everyone, male or female, regardless of race, to reach out and seek mental health services if needed. Now, there are some things you can put in place if you don't have some severe things going on, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I encourage everyone to be mindful, especially men. Men have such a weight that women don't really necessarily experience, because we're always encouraged to talk about stuff. Talk it out. Go find your friends. Go have a girls' night. Go talk to your mom. Go talk to your sisters. Well, men don't always have that outlet. And when they do have good relationships with friends or fathers or uncles or male mentors, there's also the man stigma of certain things I can't, necessarily bring up with my friends because that may violate some man code. So we'll kind of touch on that. So some common things to look at or to consider when you're looking at symptoms for male mental health specifically is aggression and violence. Okay. Now, let's kind of break that down a little bit more. When men are experiencing depressive symptoms, when men are experiencing other emotions that really men don't get to put a label on like women do, it can be expressed through aggression, verbal aggression, or physical aggression, which is violence. The thing with that is, and it can be internalized aggression, and we'll touch on that too. The thing with that is, with aggression, we have to look at men, honestly, in our society are only given a very small amount of ways to express themselves, and only certain emotions. Honestly, it's either happy, calm, or angry. Those are okay. When we think of men and you think of like, well, what really is there going on if a man feels worthless? What if a man is experiencing that? How can a man actually say to another man, I feel worthless? That doesn't necessarily happen. That space is not necessarily available totally to all men. So therefore, it'll come out in aggression and frustration and high risk activities, even in substance use and excessive alcohol use, maybe even becoming a workaholic. A physical workout person A physically fit person could be a person that excessively works out to then cover the feelings of worthlessness, the feelings of frustration in life, the feelings of being limited, also feelings of depression where they may be sad, feel hopeless. So therefore, if I put all my energy somewhere else, I can kind of cover up that missing piece that I don't know how to address. Even I don't even know how to touch on it in a way that will allow me to resolve it in a healthy way for self. Um, a man that may be having some mental health concerns, especially with depression or anxiety, may also experience feeling restless, like you can't settle down. Even when you get ready to rest at night, like I can't just sit still. I have to constantly be going, constantly be going, constantly be going. Sometimes that behavior is to stay away from the feeling of worthlessness, sadness, hopelessness, to avoid addressing whatever it is that could be triggering the anxiety or triggering the possible depression episode that may be trying to come on. Um, of course, change in appetite. May eat more, may eat less, may eat horrible foods. Usually, when someone is depressed, they don't go get all the carrots out the refrigerator and consume them. But hey, everyone's different. Also, may have obsessive thinking. Usually when we think of obsessive thinking, we think about someone who's like a stalker. That's not the totality of it. A man that may have obsessive thinking may focus in on um, you know, what can I do to be more worthy, specifically to a person or to a job or to their children. What can I do to show my value? What can I do? What can I do? That also links to the restlessness because their mind is constantly going, which also triggers anxiety and keeps that cycle going, which then without the rest, without proper maintenance of physical health through what we eat, what we do, how we interact with others, that can always lead to depression. Like I said before a few weeks ago, depression and anxiety go hand in hand. And I think that with mental health, that's not often really discussed, whether it's men or women. It's just the expression is different, and the seeking help is a lot different between men and women. So I have some statistics. 49% of men feel more depressed than they are willing to admit to people, to others. So what that's saying is almost half, one out of every two men may, in the very least bit, acknowledge, hey, I'm kind of feeling down today, but won't really go into, I've been feeling down and horrible and sad and hopeless for weeks, for months, years. Sometimes men struggle with mental health for years before, through either some awesome divine intervention, or they finally say, hey, I've got to seek out some type of help. Do they then get any type of help? And 45% of men, which is almost half, um, and this is a survey of 1,000 men, I believe that they can resolve their own mental health issues by themselves. Okay. Let's look at that piece before we kind of break into some more about identifying mental health concerns, specifically depression, anxiety, and then ways to start coping with them. As I've said before, and I will say always, if you were meant to do everything on your own, you will be a world of one person. We are here and awesomely connected and cross each other's paths through divine intervention, whichever divine entity you believe in. Because of the simple fact, we're here to work together to build each other up and to uplift each other. If you're dealing with mental health issues, it's not meant for you to figure it out on your own. I know many societies, many cultures tell men, hey, you have to be self-starting, you have to be self-sufficient, you have to always be on top of everything, you have to provide for everybody. Guess what? No person is superhuman. We all need help at some point. And to be able to identify, hey, I need some help with this. It's not saying that you're weak. It's not saying that you're limited. It's not saying that you're not able to do all the things that you set out to do in life. What it is saying is that you are human, and being human and allowing yourself to walk in your humanness takes a lot of pressure away from you as a person. Okay. So, with anxiety, there is a little bit I want to touch on with anxiety, because I think sometimes people think of anxiety mostly as like excessive worry or panic attacks where your heartbeat is racing, or you're having trouble breathing, anything like that. That is not all of what anxiety could be. Anxiety can also include obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, in a very basic explanation of what that is, that means you may have an excessive need. And remember, I say need. It's not a want. It's this urge that things have to be in a certain order. Things have to be completed in a certain order. If anything gets out of order, there may be anxiety that comes because you feel as though everything will turn into chaos, everything will fall apart, everything will be destroyed. Okay. Um, those things can be something that maybe people will not necessarily observe. Um, some people can be mildly obsessive compulsive with checklists. Okay. Um, I got to check all these things off before noon. If I don't check them off by noon, I'm worthless. I don't know what I'm doing. Life is going to come to an end. Everything's going to tumble over on me. It's a lot of things. Generalized anxiety disorder. What that basically means is that there may not be a specific um, reason or trigger that you have identified with your anxiety, but you feel anxious more often than not. So you haven't really identified what that specific thing is, what that specific thought process may be. Um, but it could be many things. It could be things coming up from your past that you're subconsciously remembering, and therefore you're getting a mental, emotional, and physical response that is that of anxiety. There's social anxiety. Some men don't feel comfortable, and women don't feel comfortable going out in large crowds, don't feel comfortable being around people they don't know or don't have a long, in-depth history with, and have difficulty even connecting with new people. With social anxiety, it's not uncommon, especially even with the way COVID has been, for people to kind of be a little distant from people. For one, because of the germ factor. Like, wait a minute, if you coughing and sneezing too much, I got to stay away from you. That's one thing. But with the ability for maybe people with social anxiety to have that okay to isolate, coming back out is even harder for them at points. So being mindful of that. And then also there's the anxiety that may come from fears of certain things, certain places, certain people. So that's a whole different situation. Um, the irony of that, when men do acknowledge that they are experiencing any form of anxiety, um, it actually begins to equal that of women. So it's not that women experience more, it's not that men experience more, it's that people are experiencing similar anxieties, similar symptoms of depression. And with that being said, it doesn't cause a person to say something's wrong with me. It's saying I'm having this difficulty right now and I need some help. That's the main key that I really want to push home, is that it's okay to ask for help. It is totally, totally okay. Please do so. Okay. We'll take a brief break here in a little bit, but I want to remind you before we do that Featured Artist Friday is tomorrow. The featured artist will be Brian McKnight, which starts at 5:30 p.m. Brian McKnight, if y'all know, y'all know. If you don't know, tune in, because Brian is the business. Also, make sure you tune in to Whisper Softly which airs every Sunday through Friday from 8 p.m. to midnight. Also, if you miss any portion of this broadcast or you want to go back and listen again to this broadcast or any other, please tune in to Batchelor Radio at airtime.pro. We'll go ahead and take a brief 30-second break, and then we'll be right back and continue our topic.
Required listening with Amazon Music.
Dad music again?
The greatest guitarist of all time.
Wait, who?
You know, before Boost, our phone bill was obscene. So we switched to Boost and got lines for the whole family with unlimited gigs for a much more family-friendly price. It's nice to have a phone bill that doesn't require parental controls.
Your family deserves better. Get 4 lines for only $25 per line, each with unlimited gigs. Plus, get up to 4 free Samsung J7 perks with 6 months of Hulu, where you can stream all the shows everyone is talking about. All on the super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
All right, welcome back, y'all. Okay, so we were talking about some commonalities with depression and anxiety specifically. In the near future, I also want to talk about PTSD, how it impacts men, how it impacts women, because I think a lot of us don't understand or don't realize that we're impacted by that, and therefore it may come out as an expression of depression or an expression of anxiety. So we'll talk about that here in the near future. So let's look at some ways to start to identify ways to, first of all, acknowledge anxiety or depression and to start to cope with it, okay? First and foremost, one second. First and foremost, I want to not get messages. Oh, okay, I see. Sorry about that. There was a message from Doug who asked, how much do Black people being trained to be tough play into how much they admit to having mental health issues, and how do we fix them? Okay, so this is awesome, and thank you, Doug, for that question. We fix them. Oh, I apologize. It was in my chat down there and I wasn't paying attention. I'm just talking. So, Doug, this is awesome because as African American folks, we have so much that is put on us that you have to be stronger, you have to be smarter, you have to be quicker, you have to, work harder, you have to, and you cannot show emotion. Emotion is in many ways when we're raised, is said to be a form of weakness, so therefore we don't acknowledge it. That has so much impact because that cultural belief that you can show an emotion as a sign of weakness has caused so much detriment to us as individuals, as well as us as families, as well as us as a community. When we don't get a chance to look at what these emotions are, because even African American children nowadays that are going through traumatic situations don't even recognize how that trauma can impact them. And there we keep that generational cycle of not tuning into self, not being truthful with yourself and saying, this is hard, this is difficult. We need to be very mindful as men, as women, and as parents or caregivers that we allow ourselves the space, especially in this time where it's more people that look like us that are in mental health, to seek out help, where it's more people that look like us that are willing to have those talks about how to introduce talking about feelings and emotions and trauma and stress and all of that, where we're able to start to get a voice in these things, with especially opening that topic up to our families. So that's an awesome question, Doug. It has such a huge impact, because not only as men, but as Black men, what form other than here recently of what I've seen, there's been a lot that have come up to allow men to even say, heck, I'm stressed out, I'm tired. Well, I feel like I'm being pulled in all directions. I don't feel like I have any connection with myself mentally or emotionally. Some men are so pulled to the very edge that they don't get to say, you know what, I'm stressed out. Because then it's the look of, well, how are you stressed out? What all do you have on your plate? And then there comes that comparison of, well, women do this and men do that, and it doesn't even matter. The point is, if you are a person, you are stressed out, you're pulled to your limits, you're experiencing anxiety, you're experiencing depression, then that's the truth. And that needs to be addressed. So thank you, Doug, for that. It's very, very insightful. One way to kind of begin to look at possible triggers is look at what your thought pattern is, the way your thoughts go. If a person is very focused on negative thinking, like nothing's going to work out for me, I don't know what I'm doing, everything I've tried hasn't worked, so why even try anything else? That's going to feed very directly into hopelessness. You're killing every single hope that could possibly be planted in your thoughts, in your interactions with other people. You're killing it dead when you say, well, there's no purpose. And then also what you're doing is you're feeding into all that negativity that has possibly been poured into you over your lifetime. Now, mind you, the negativity that's poured in doesn't just come from family. It comes from your community. It comes from media. It comes from, complete strangers. Okay. It comes from the work environment you're in too. So be mindful and start to identify, like, where can I challenge my negative thoughts? What can I put in to show, you know what, everything isn't a loss. I've wanted this, I've wanted that, I've won in this area, I've done better here. Now, when you're starting to identify those wins, don't just look for the big, huge wins. Identify all the wins. I got up this morning and my clothes match. I got to work on time today. That's a win. Because then when you start to show yourself, I can do these things, what you'll cause yourself to do is start to attempt to outdo yourself. Now, the thing is, thought patterns are part of it. However, if you've been experiencing depression for several weeks, several months, several years, this may have become your norm. So now the question is, how do I get unstuck from this? How do I challenge depression? How do I start to work away from depression? For one, I'm going to always, always, always encourage you to seek out a mental health professional. Some people may say, I don't know where to go. I have no idea who to call.
Where do I plug this in?
Regardless where you're at, you can go on psychologytoday.com. That will allow you to filter out the people
No,
in your area,
I
male or female,
took
whichever
the
you
internet
prefer, if you
out
have
and
a
plugged in
preference.
my
You'll also be able to identify
laptop.
people
Now I
that
need
look
to
like
find
you.
somewhere to
Okay. Even if it's a concern about their spiritual backgrounds, you can look at that. Okay. I encourage you. I encourage you. There's another website. I believe it is, put it in the search engine, therapist that looks like me. Also, there's blacktherapy.com, all kinds of websites. Okay. Check those out, especially for your area. If you're in a larger, more metropolitan area, of course, there may be more options, but look into it. Also, do not close yourself off from virtual, because many states have begun to allow people to work across state lines that would have given a whole big hoopla before.
Yeah, I understand why
So
he's
it's
saying it,
more
but
access to people that look like you, more access to more male therapists as well. Okay. You maybe feel more comfortable with male therapists. Begin to practice and focus deep breathing. I always encourage people, the way you breathe is going to impact your thoughts and your mental so much, so much. Okay, it's going to be on a whole different level. And sometimes we think, oh, shucks, breathing, how's that going to do anything? I tell you, I don't encourage people to do things that I have not already tried myself. So I've noticed when I take a step back from a stressful situation and I allow myself to breathe and focus on my breathing, my energy is able to readjust and I'm able to refocus on the situation, on the concern. And even my approach may be different. Don't cause when you step back and take those deep breaths, it keeps you from causing yourself to put extra pressure on yourself that the situation may be already presenting, that the people you're dealing with may be already presenting. Also, and I'm gonna just be upfront, dealing with depression and anxiety, sometimes it can be the people you're around, okay, that can cause you to really maintain more of a negative focus, more of a negative emotional state. And those folks could possibly be the trigger. Okay. Remember, we talked about mother issues and father issues a few months back? Very, very, very much the same. Whatever their cycle is, they will and can pass it right down to you. Another thing that helps, and I'm sure many men will be like, I ain't doing that. But think about it. At least give it an option, a turnaround. Think about the things that are in your environment. And this is closely related to triggers, especially for a person that may have PTSD, that may experience depression, that may experience anxiety. The smells that are around you can be triggers, okay? Start to think about when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling depressed. I want you all to do this. Take a moment, especially in a safe place, so don't stop in the middle of the road while you're driving, and think about, what am I hearing that could be a trigger for me? What am I smelling that could be a trigger for me? What am I tasting that could be a trigger for me? What am I touching, or what do I feel that could be a trigger for me? Many times, especially if you've had a difficult upbringing or difficult events in life, even in adulthood, we don't realize the things that we consider small that we connect to that trauma. For instance, a person that had experienced their mother being physically assaulted by their stepdad when they were growing up, whenever they smelled cigarette smoke, they didn't really connect immediately that was something they recognized as a child. When I smell cigarette smoke, I know my stepdad is upset, and I know that when he's upset, he's usually going to be physically aggressive to my mom. So smelling cigarette smoke was a trigger. Never really realized it until he went back and began to process that during therapy. Even certain sweet smells can be triggers, even so, not just the abrasive kind of smells like cigarette smoke, but maybe even sweet smells, smells that you would think, oh, that's calming. Some people will say, oh, well, if you smell lavender, some people that can be a trigger for them, depending on their connection to lavender. So be really, really super mindful about that. I also am going to say again, search for a person, a therapist, a licensed professional mental health provider, okay? And sit and talk to them. There are more out there than you recognize, and there are more men out there than you realize. Not all African American, however, they are out there. And actually, there's so much more I want to kind of break down in this topic. We'll continue this one next week as we look at other ways, other triggers, and I want to kind of touch on PTSD as well. So, as we kind of wrap up for today, I want you to also be mindful of getting out of your regular routine and going for a walk, going for a jog, going to do something that takes your mind completely off of what you do at work, completely off of what's going on at home, just gives you time to kind of get some exercise in, because for one, it's going to cause your heart rate to increase, which increases your blood flow. And what it also does is increase your breathing rate, and therefore you get more oxygen into your blood to help clear out brain fog and negative thinking. It also gives you an option to kind of get away from those situations that may be impacting the depression and or anxiety, and kind of clear your mind and get another way to approach the situation. So it's another way to reset. If you have any questions, any comments, anything, feel free to email me at emergingease@gmail.com. I can bring those questions up during next show, because we will continue this, because it's like a lot to break down. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to Emerging Ease with Keisha here on Batchelor Radio Network. Have a good week.
Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you for taking such a time as this to participate in your personal improvement with Emerging Ease. I'm Keisha, your host. Remember that in everything, there's an opportunity to learn and grow. If you are experiencing a difficult time, please reach out to the National Crisis Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. And I look forward to hearing from you next week on Emerging Ease with Keisha.